And welcome to Focus and Foundation. I'm Kelly Phipps, the owner of Centerpoint Learning Solutions.
And I'm Tina Kramer, the creator of Simple Learning and the patent pending sound device.
So today we are going to pick up from previous conversations about picking your battles and how do we decide, how do we move ahead when as a parent or as an employer or as an individual that is simply working with other individuals that have learning differences. How do we decide? What do we do? What do we say? And how can we make sure that our personal language and the way that we approach things helps the situation instead of making it worse?
Yeah, so we actually move into an area of concepts that tend to be new information, which is really exciting that we can share this information. So there's a level of education that is assumed, it's fair to say. There is a part of development that it's assumed that the individual is going to learn and that they're going to understand. And this information is not readily available out there, that what we used to always assume is not happening. Now, Kelly, the first thing that I go to with this that I usually share with people that it kind of helps them understand is time blindness. I talk to a fair amount of people about time blindness, and that's a new concept to them. Because when we're in school, they teach us how to tell time. They teach us how to look at a clock and be able to tell time. However, there's also this internal awareness of time. So let's say I give you a call, Kelly, and we're talking on the phone. If I have this internal awareness of time, you could ask me, so how long have we been talking? And I'd go, well, maybe about 20 minutes. But if I have time blindness, then if you ask me, well, how long have we been talking on the phone? I will have no idea. I won't, if I'm not looking at a clock, I will not have this feeling of, oh, it's been about amount of time.
Yeah. And some people have this can sound odd as I say it, but a natural time blindness. And other times that time blindness we personally experience because we've been so engaged in something that we're enjoying it so much, or we hate it so much that we have blocked it out. We have no idea. Tina, I was thinking as you were talking about that being time blindness being the first area that we kind of address, I was thinking it's actually the first outward manifestation that people see, right? It's the first thing that we recognize as there is a problem here because it's a type of concept. Time itself is an internal awareness. It's an internal clock besides the man-made clock on the wall. But it stems from something deeper than that. It stems from understanding that that a change took place, and that change had a duration, right? It took a while for that change to happen. And my experience has been for those of us, and I can say that because I fit the picture, for those of us that have an internal clock that runs faster than what would be typical, when things actually started and when they actually are going to end, that duration piece, that's where I'm blind, right? How long does it actually take for this thing to occur, for it actually get to that end piece? How long did it actually take me to drive to church? I don't know. Got in the car and I was there. I know the route, right? But that was the first time I recognized it for me personally, was having to realize that there's a reason I'm late for church or school, but school usually not, but church, yes.
Well, and then it's so important for parents to be at this, this particular one. There's quite a few we're going to talk about, but this particular one. So imagine if you have a child, they're busy. Let's say that they're busy. They're always moving, and they don't know that they don't have this eternal awareness of time. You don't know that they have this eternal awareness. They don't have this internal awareness of time. let's pick on church. Kelly, you brought up church. Most children, how long is church gonna be? And they don't particularly like the sitting involved in being in church. And they don't particularly want to go, if we're totally honest. Now, that's not all children, but most children that I know. So you have a child that has a learning difference, and you're going into church and they're starting to fidget and they're uncomfortable. And then you think in terms of they have no idea how much time has passed. And if you're not enjoying something, not having this, you get the behaviors that are kind of unwanted and not appreciated.
Mhm.
So then one of the reasons why we're bringing this up is, okay, so how do we help that individual that does not have the internal awareness of time? They're busy. They don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I can remember when my children were little, I had like a special little church toys, that would go with me that I could entertain them with. But then after our kids get to a certain age, that's not exactly appropriate. And then we can move into that place of, if you have a watch or if they have a watch, and then helping them to actually look, pay attention, and start to, depending on what your church service is like or whatever the activity is. Okay, we've sang a song. We're gonna listen to the announcements for the morning, and then there'll be another song. How long did that take?
Uh-huh.
And then getting them involved in actually looking at their watch. And then you're also helping them feel, you're starting to create that. Hopefully they're going to move to a point that they can actually predict.
So as you're describing, everything you're describing that one could do as far as engaging their child to be aware of a passage of time, that's what we call intention. Okay, to be intentional about something. I guess that's more than intention itself. Intentional, doing something with purpose, right? We're going to switch the activity from mundane, something we do, to something that we are purposely aware of. And when we flip that, all of a sudden, that awareness of the concept, and really that's what time is. That is a concept that is not taught, it is internalized through life, and will not internalize through life if we are not consciously aware. And so we have to be intentional and purposeful about opening the door to being aware. Now, we kind of picked on church because most of us have had the experience of either ourselves or our children or whatever. You're sitting in the pew and activities are going on, but you're a participant, but you are also an observer in many ways, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing I was thinking of that would be a great way to start with this is actually those drives where the kids are we there yet? How much longer? Are we there yet? Right? Okay, so time itself, it's just the duration of the change, point A to point B. That's a great place to start this whole, how long did it take? Let's measure, how long does it take? I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but we can measure that. We can measure it by miles. We can measure it by distance. How much longer? It's 10 more miles. Oh, how long does it take to go 10 miles? Well, it depends on how fast we're traveling. How long will it take us to go 10 miles? Right? And you build those concepts that it's it's kind of cool because it's a math thing.
I think that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations, because we can talk about it from math. We were both teachers. We taught time. We can talk about it from everybody should know what this is and understand. And we want to be very clear about this, that there is another level, there is a more when we're dealing with individuals that have learning differences. And so oftentimes the conversations sound very similar to what we're used to having. However, we are pinpointing in a way, because right now we're talking about change and the measurement of a change. So if we have an individual that has a learning difference, they don't do well with change, they're not going to recognize the change. They're not going to understand what so many people just take for granted. Like, well, yeah, we're measuring that we're timing from the time we leave our house and we get to grandma's house. That is a change in distance. However, because of the way we teach it and the specifics that we do, we're adding that more in. So we're including the teaching of change, and then we're moving into how we actually can measure that change. And then that starts to get the internalization and the awareness of time, which ultimately that's our goal.
Right, right. And what we need to remember is just learning something once is not mastering it. That it's something we have to practice. And that's why when we think about development, we have these expectations of certain age that an individual would understand this by this certain age, the developmental milestone. And we need to remember that if an individual has a natural speed of thought that is faster than the majority, their developmental milestone in that change, understanding change and understanding how things go together, it is odd. It's slower. It seems so odd to think I think faster, therefore I develop slower. But that's exactly it. And so patience is huge and necessary for parents and caregivers that are working with kids that have these struggles. And I would say with adults that are working with other adults that have these struggles. They're not purposefully having the struggle. They're not purposely not learning the information you're trying to share with them or not retaining the information that you're trying to share with them. But they need repetition and more. They need more opportunities to practice any situation. And yeah.
And that's clearing up that confusion. So even for neurotypical individuals that don't have a learning difference, when there is confusion, because I know parents have come to me and are like, I don't understand, why can't my child do this? And that confusion brings frustration. And there's a big difference between I have an unruly child that will not listen to I have a child that is learning differently, and I now know how to teach them differently. They're going to have success. I'm going to have success. And it really changes the emotions that oftentimes are occurring in these type of situations.
I think that's key. It changes the emotion, because it's the emotion that we see that becomes the tantrum, becomes the blow up, it becomes the crying, becomes the meltdown, however you want to see it. But it's the overwhelming feeling that comes out from us. I was thinking specifically about situations where we're trying to share information with our kids that about a change, right? That something's going to happen, or about something that did happen and maybe they missed because they weren't fully present for whatever reason. They were ahead of the game or caught doing something else. And the power that we have in our language to be able to describe with pretty accuracy, to be able to describe a picture and then the change of a picture, that this is what you thought was going to happen, right? But did that happen? No. What did happen? This other thing happened, right? And so that was not what you expected to happen. How did that make you feel? I was frustrated. Oh, I understand. You were frustrated. And so you were frustrated because you thought something else was going to occur, but instead this occurred. Okay. Now, what can we do? Because where are we now? We are in this situation, right? This is what we have. Um, it Here's a real example. Okay. We had a wonderful opportunity from a local business that donated gifts for my students in my tutoring center for Christmas. And they separated them by age group and then by gender so that they could kind of be more accurate. And instead of putting age range, they put group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, etc. on here. And we had a young man, like he's 5, that so a boy who got to have his gift, and the number on the gift, because it was, I can't remember what the age, but it didn't match, and he was thinking grade, did not match his grade, didn't match his age, didn't match, but these other ones did, because they were higher numbers. These were lower numbers because he's younger. Okay.
Right.
And he was so confused because why are we giving him a baby gift? Because I'm pretty sure he was in the youngest group, and he was a boy, so he probably got a 2. Right. In his mind, he should have gotten one of the 6s.
Yes, absolutely.
But he got a 2. And we were like, just wait. All of these emotions. So got him to calm down. And then he opened his gift. And it was something he liked, but there was so many other emotions tied to it. And then of course, mom and dad don't understand, because here you just received a gift. You should be thankful. You're crying. And, all of these things, mom and dad are all trying to apologize for this behavior.
Yeah.
And I just was so thankful for the tutor who knew this little boy and knew exactly what was happening, because I was on the outside. I really didn't quite get it, other than I just tried to stay out of it.
Yeah.
And she said, wait. And so she went through this conversation of, you thought this is what happened. And he said, yes. And then she said, are you thankful for this? Yes, I'm thankful for this. And is your body not ready to show that? Yes. It's like, okay, we'll wait for you. You're not, no big deal. Let it go. He did his little thing, got rid of his emotion, all that stuff. And then he smiled and we took a picture of him with his gift, right? But it was that whole process, and had everything to do with he's thinking, he had an expectation, he had pictures in his head, they did not match the reality. It came out as an emotion, and and then you have the emotions of the adults who don't get it.
Right.
That don't get it. So we need to, I personally was very thankful for this tutor that got it. And I learned a lot from watching that and recognizing that, oh yeah, we need to teach parents how to recognize this is happening in their child, so they can help them to alleviate that negative connotation that comes from the outside judgment of, because he was very thankful for getting a gift. He was not angry about the gift. He wasn't sad about the gift. He was confused about the process, and it came out as an emotion.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And that exemplifies what we're trying to share and what we're trying to explain, because when we increase understanding of what the situation really is, then where the problem is, we can go directly to it, versus everybody being frustrated and then it being worse for everybody, because we're putting more and more energy in the wrong place.
Right.
Whereas when we can put it in the right place, it de-escalates for parents and also for the children. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do and share. Now, I'm gonna move us in a little bit of a different direction, because Kelly and I were presenting over the weekend. And we were talking about these very things. Now, Kelly, in that presentation, you moved into the language that we oftentimes, or that not the language we oftentimes use, the language we want to move into. when we're in these situations that can be challenging. And there was a word that I heard you use, and I loved it. It was so beautiful the way you presented, and it was nevertheless.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you talk to us a little bit about our language and how we can change language to continue to de-escalate challenging situations?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key thing that goes with it is absolutely. We want to be as positive as possible with ourselves and with our children. We want to be as positive as possible. That being said, we also have to hold firm. So those two words, absolutely and nevertheless, are so powerful because we can say yes to our children in a request, any request, and we can tie it to something else. So we say, like, for instance, I want a cookie. Now's not the time for a cookie, right? So I could say, no, you may not have a cookie. It's 10 in the morning. It's not time for a cookie. You don't get a cookie. I want a cookie, I want a cookie. You can't have a cookie, right? And we're, oh, mama, why can't you get that? Okay. See, absolutely, you can have a cookie after lunch. We'll have a cookie after you eat your lunch. And then, well, how long till lunch? Da, da, da. Deal with that. Okay. But absolutely, you can have a cookie after lunch. Okay. The other one is, like you said, nevertheless. Nevertheless is a little bit more used towards those rules. And we have to know the rule first. So that is something that has to be established to begin with. But you can say, I know you want that cookie. I know you want that cookie. Nevertheless, it is not lunchtime yet. And when lunch comes, absolutely you may have that cookie. But nevertheless, this is the situation, right? I know this. You identify, yes, that is real. Nevertheless, I know he hit you. Nevertheless, we don't hurt people. We don't return pain for pain or whatever, right? But it is extremely powerful. And so we've spoken before about the parenting class called the parent program called the Parent Project. And I learned those two phrases literally, more than 27 years ago. And started using those are the two nuggets I kept and moved ahead with because they are so powerful.
Yeah, it really was. It was beautiful to hear you explain. And then you also went into, how you use that term with younger children versus older children. And then how we can use it just in everyday life to de-escalate situations. So we're approaching the end of our time together, Kelly. I do want to touch a little bit on consequences, because oftentimes our individuals that have learning differences do not understand consequences, but they do not understand when they're at the cause of the effect. Mm-hmm. So I always explain it this way. Oftentimes we think in pictures, and a picture will stand alone. And so they're missing the connection between what they're causing and then the effect of what they're causing. And so this takes a little time to be able to teach. We're usually moving into this after an individual understands change. Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit about, so we can raise awareness for parents and teachers that we really do deal with people that they don't have consequence. They don't understand that at all.
Right, for sure. So when we are an individual, just like you said, Tina, a picture thinker, someone who processes in units of time. And that's how everyone is. This happened, this happened, this happened. And if we struggle to tie them all together because we haven't stayed present during the process, and it comes to an individual who's thinking beyond to the next step. They miss the piece in between, right? They miss how it's all connected together. A specific thing is an individual who leaves a cereal bowl in the living room, okay, after they've eaten, or on the table. In my house, it would be the living room. I just have to tell you that. We are bad. They can't eat in the living room. But okay, so let's go back to something we would want on the kitchen table. They leave their cereal bowl on the kitchen table and go on with life. And they were thinking about, I need to get to class, or I need to get to work, or I need to, and I'm finished with my food. Da, da, da. I'm already at the next place and I haven't tied myself to the action. So then mom comes in, sees the cereal bowl, right? And that cereal bowl gets put away, gets put in the dishwasher, gets put or whatever. So when that person comes back, there is no cereal bowl there. The cereal bowl's gone because someone took care of it. And then the conversation is, you left your food on the table. I didn't leave my food on the table. You left your food on the table. I didn't. You know, I didn't. No, I didn't. You left your, so you see how that goes, right? And that causes all of this stuff. In that individual's mind, they honestly did not see how one thing was connected to another. They did not see it. In their mind, they moved on and they didn't physically take care of it. And it has everything to do with their imagination not being connected with their senses. So, what do we call that? That's not necessarily a confusion like we normally think about, but it is a disorientation. Sometimes it's even a dissociation in that I'm already in the car, right? Because I don't want to be late. All of those things that are tied together. And so what is absolutely necessary is to teach an individual how to stay present through the actions. Once you start that scenario, once you start laying those foundations, then life takes over and the individual starts connecting it. So they can take this little connection and apply it to the next one and apply it to the next one and apply it to the next one. It's not like you have to teach them every single time, but you have to teach them being present.
They actually become aware of the concept and then they internalize that. There's a colleague of ours that tells the story, and I love to hear her tell this story because it makes so much sense. She was working with a young man that had just gotten his license and he was getting lots of tickets. And when she asked him, she said, well, why are you getting so many tickets? And he said, well, the cops in this town, they don't like me. Because that's usually what happens. We think we're not liked.
Mm-hmm.
And she was working with this young man, and then they sat down and they started to really take a look at concepts. So they were creating the pictures together of what he was doing to get the tickets, because to him, he just wasn't liked. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And as she kept asking questions so they could recreate the pictures, he finally said he kind of souped up his car. He was pretty decent mechanic. And he finally shared with her that he purposely was driving really fast because when the police officers would come to give him the ticket, they would tell him how fast he was going. And that's really what he was interested in, knowing how fast he was going. He was missing that he was creating this situation to where he wasn't being liked in the town, but then also all the money that was involved in paying for those tickets and all the problems that he was having. He just was not connecting to any of that. Now, when we tell that story, sometimes we get this, you gotta be kidding. Come on, that guy knew exactly what he was doing. He did know exactly what he was doing, but he was not connecting to the consequences or, the effect of the situation that he was creating for himself. And that's really important when you're trying to parent a child, that they're doing these unwanted things and they're not realizing, they're not making the connection, because you may be putting the punishments, you may be putting the consequences for their actions in place, and they're not connecting to them.
Right. So one other thing that I would add to that is we have some people that are obviously have a learning difference. And then you have others that they're kind of hidden. They're kind of hidden. And so one wouldn't just speak out to it right off the bat. But all individuals benefit from being given the opportunity to learn cause and effect, to learn consequence. And all individuals need the opportunity to play it all the way through. We can't assume that individuals will get it. I have a kiddo that I work with that struggles with math. And the struggle in math, as we try to gain some more understanding behind it, is starting to show itself as that it's actually part of the difficulty is a lack of opportunity to experience things in life that involve math, like baking, fractions, right? Like cutting things up, like digging a hole. When we try to understand fractions and ratios and proportions, you have to have something in real life to tie that to. And if you have never measured something, you wouldn't know. If you need to understand negative numbers, you have to understand what it is to dig a hole, or to check the temperature, or you have to know what altitude is. You have to know those things. And if you don't know those things, have had an experience, not that you have to have the words to go with it, but to have the experience of it, it's really hard to understand math. And that one thing becomes something else, or things could be equal, or all of those things, they come from experience and opportunity. And what I have found is that the more an individual struggles with that, the more they might try to stay away from it.
Yeah.
And if they're an individual that tries to stay away from it, then the parent needs to be even more intentional and put them in those situations, give them those opportunities, allow them to experience it and walk through it. Because on the other side, the learning struggles are developed because those concepts are missing, or they're not solid. They may not be completely missing, but they might be just a little weak, and they can't support the higher thinking and the application that's necessary to understand time and sequence and order and all these other things that are up there.
Right. And let me reiterate. So I'm going to use time for an example. Being taught in school how to tell time, and then taking a test on being able to tell time. You could be an individual that could ace that test 100%, but not have the internalization of time. So then in everyday life, you're always late, you're confused, or you're always early. For me, I was the person who was always showing up early. That's how time worked for me. And there's a difference between the two. And I don't think that's always readily recognized. So we're talking about the practical experience, and then also the educational experience, and how the two can go together and fit together very nicely and support each other for a well-balanced, successful individual. So Kelly, it's always a pleasure to present and work with you and talk with you in sharing this information for parents and raising awareness, hopefully making life easier for them. I am Tina Kramer. I'm the creator of Simple Learning and the patent pending sound device.
And I'm Kelly Phipps, the owner of Centerpoint Learning Solutions. It was great to be with you this afternoon or this evening. We look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.